Joe from Angleton has a question about a barn building.
He loves your show
thank you.
Wants your advice.
Thank you.
Joe writes, I'm in a floodplain, and anything with a concrete floor needs to be brought up to elevation. He says, do I build a pad or a thick foundation? He says, it's 2 feet on the perimeter walls.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
You're going to bring your pad in first. You're going to use stabilized soil. Bring it in about a foot. And then you can do another foot of concrete, but you're going to put some bank sand in the forms. So you're still going to have the thin slab. You'll have your grade beams around the perimeter and maybe a couple of, depending how the size of it. I'm not going to design it for you, but it has to go down 6 inches into the existing soil. So you will have to dig some trenches around the exterior of it and maybe a couple on the inside. But you still have the thin slab, and you'll still be able to save concrete by putting stabilized soil in and not just sand, because 2 feet of sand isn't going to work. But a foot of stabilized soil and about 6 inches of sand and about 6 inches of slab, it'll be fine.
Woof. Well, there's an answer.
It's a slab, man.
All right, one last question he has is,
Yes.
He wants to know, how does he set the pole for the pole barn with the concrete floor?
You can do it a lot of different ways, but what you usually do is you set your poles in the ground, like you do at a beach house, right? And then you don't have a slab, you just have a pad, and you go ahead and pour the pad so it's not structural. So I would set the poles into the ground as part of the structure, and then I would just pour a thin slab, and you can bring it up if you want. I don't even know if it's considered a slab once it's just a pad, because the pad is not a structural part of the building. And so if it's not a structural part of the building, you might get away with not having to bring it up 2 feet altogether.
How would you be sure before it's done and some weasel shows up in a Prius from downtown?
Well, you go to the weasels first.
Okay.
Okay. And you ask them about what you're doing and if it would be possible for you to, the structure is the poles, goes into the ground. How they go, it depends what part. You know, in Galveston, you have to go 1.5 feet down for every foot up.
Okay.
So there are rules depending where you're doing this. And that way, the slab is not a structural slab. And they might mean only structural slabs have to be at a certain height.
Okay.
Okay.
So you got that? But here's another tip that born from my experience.
Yeah.
Don't call them weasels.
No, that's good.
Not to their face. It's Mr. Weasel, sir. That'll work.
Not really.
Don't.
And remember this, that you might not be able to insure what's in the barn, so you have to go through the insurance company too, since it's in a floodplain, and there is flood insurance. And if you have tractors or expensive equipment, you're going to want to get it up past an area where you can have it covered with flood insurance.
All right, but I think we got you covered.
So there might be a couple of set of very nice weasels.
They're not weasels.
CD? Mr. Weasel.
Mr. Weasel, sir. That's
Mr. Weasel, sir.
That's right.
No,
It's
not
like,
weasels. They just follow the rules. That's
Jake
all.
wouldn't have been thrown out if he had said, "You're an idiot, sir," to the umpire. All right.
Nice.
You got a question? Go ahead and send it our way. Visit HomeShowRadio.com and click right there on the, we made it easier for you, right there in the center of the homepage. There's a button that says Ask Tom. Click on that bad boy and send us your question. We'll take it and answer it either in another one of these daily Ask Tom videos, our weekly Facebook Live, or Sunday morning on Early Edition.